Chapter 1621. All right. She was so captivated by the man in front of her that she lost her sense of direction. She could only look at the person in front of her with a smile that made people unable to move their eyes away. When the maid beside the woman heard this, her heart skipped a beat. She glanced at the red-clothed youth and couldn't help but gently tug on her young Miss sleeve. They didn't have that much money to buy these 3 sets of jewelry. If they couldn't take out the money at that time, they would lose a lot of face. On the other side, after Fingzhou paid the money, he handed the set of jewelry to his mother. "Mother, this set of jewelry is for you. Let's go look around somewhere else." He didn't even look at the woman again. Shengwan Wanrong smiled helplessly. "Mother usually doesn't wear these things. Even so, I bought it." "Mother, even if you don't wear it, you still have to wear it." She smiled and narrowed her eyes. She lightly held her mother's hand and was about to leave. At this time, the well-dressed woman who saw this scene finally returned to her senses. She couldn't help but call out, "Young master, you're leaving just like that. Didn't he want to buy jewelry for her? Why did he leave?" Fengzhou looked back and smiled. "Miss, take your time looking around. We'll be leaving first. If fate wills it, we'll meet again." As soon as his voice fell, a smile bloomed on his lips. The woman stood there in a daze and didn't come back to her senses for a long time. "All right, if fate wills it, we'll meet again," she muttered until the person turned the corner and walked down the first floor. Only then did she come back to her senses. "Young miss, the 3 sets of jewelry cost a total of 2,888,000 gold coins. Because young miss bought 3 sets, I've removed the ending number and only charged you 2,880,000 gold coins. I wonder if young miss would like to pay in cash or with a black crystal card." Hearing this, the well-dressed woman was even more dumbfounded. "What? 2,880,000 gold coins? Why is it so expensive?" This was equivalent to 3 years of her family's expenses. How could she afford it? This is the work of a master refiner. Moreover, each piece is unique. The price of 3 pieces isn't considered expensive. The set of blue jewelry that the red-clothed young master bought just now cost 3,600,000 gold coins. The woman behind the counter said as she looked at the woman in front of her. She seemed to be a child of a noble family. However, if she was just a child of a noble family, she might not be able to afford the jewelry here. The woman's eyes widened. Why is that set so expensive? Is there anything special about it? Every single accessory in that set has defensive and offensive functions, and it can even withstand multiple attacks from a fairy realm expert. Hence, it's a little more expensive. In addition, it's made of blue crystal salt. Blue crystal salt can only be produced once every 10 years, and it has the effect of calming one's mind, regulating one's breathing, and automatically restoring one's body. So, it's only natural that it's priced at 3.6 million. If it was placed in an auction, it would definitely fetch more than that. Hearing the woman's words, the luxuriously dressed woman's pretty face turned red and white. Looking at the people around her who were pointing at her, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed and angry. She flung her sleeve and said, "I'm not buying." Then she walked out with large strides. If she didn't buy it, she would only lose face. If she bought it, she would have to bear her father's scolding and lecturing. She wouldn't be able to bear such a consequence, and she could only lose face today. Seeing the woman walk out with large strides, the woman behind the counter looked at her for a while, then took the 3 sets of jewelry back and put them away. Chapter 1622. After leaving the treasure pavilion, Shengwan Wanrong said, "Xiao Zhou, this set of jewelry shouldn't be cheap, right?" She said that it was the work of a master refiner and that it was some kind of salt sea blue crystal, so it shouldn't be cheap. Mother, I have plenty of money, so don't worry. She sold a bottle of pills, so how much money did she get? It had to be known that for alchemists, what they didn't lack the least was money. That still can't be spent carelessly. How can it be called spending carelessly if I bought it for Mother? She smiled and held her hand. There's a tea house up ahead, let's go have a cup of tea. Thus, the three people went to the tea house's second floor and sat down at a table by the window. They ordered a pot of good tea and a few plates of snacks, then sat and chatted while looking at the scenery. Mother, put on that set of jewelry. It's sky blue and isn't too eye-catching. Moreover, it has the ability to defend against attacks. Wearing it will only bring you benefits and no harm. Wear it here. Shengguan Wanrong was startled. I'll help Mother put it on. She smiled and looked at her as she spoke. Seeing that her interest hadn't diminished, Shengguan Wanrong smiled and replied, all right. Then, she took out the set of jewelry and placed it on the table. The jewelry consisted of a space ring, a bracelet, a pair of pearl earrings, a drop-shaped necklace, and a hairpin. The designs weren't gorgeous or eye-catching. Even if it was worn on the body, people who didn't know the goods wouldn't be able to see the value of this set of jewelry. While helping her mother put it on, Fengjiu said, I originally wanted to learn how to refine weapons, so I bought some materials, but later found that I didn't have the time to learn this. You already know a lot, so you don't need to force yourself to learn too much. If you have time to learn too much, it will only tire you out. She softly said to her daughter, her heart filled with emotion. At her age, how many people had experienced the same things as her? She had already done very well. I'll wait until I have time to learn. Right now, let's take care of the matters in front of us first. She smiled and stepped back, then asked Leng Shuang, how is it? My eyesight isn't it good? Leng Shuang nodded. Yes. Hearing this, she smiled and said, I also think it suits my mother very well. Her voice paused for a moment before she continued, Mother, let's go back in a few days. It's quite a distance away, so I'm guessing that Father must be waiting anxiously at home. We can depart any time. But, have you settled your matters here? She asked. There's nothing else. However, I've always wanted to visit the owner of the black market. Who knew that he would be away for a long time and I didn't get to see him? Last time, that person said that he would inform me if he came back. It seems that he hasn't returned yet. Fengjiu sat back down at the table. He rested his face on one hand and took a sip of tea with the other. He felt helpless about this. Who would have thought that he wouldn't have the chance to meet the owner of the black market? She was really curious. What kind of person was he? Then what should we do? Was she going to leave after seeing him? Or should we talk about it in the future? It should be fate that hasn't arrived yet. Let's talk about it in the future. When the time comes, I'm sure we'll meet. She didn't believe that she wouldn't have the chance to meet the owner of the black market. Chapter 1623. Calculating the time, her little uncle should be almost 3 years old, right? Thinking of this, she laughed. Mother, Grandpa and Grandmother gave birth to little uncle so young. She gestured while saying, at that time, I was the one who helped him give birth. He's white, tender, and chubby. Counting the time, he should be almost 3 years old now. When we get home, Mother, do you and Father want to give birth to a younger brother or sister for me to play with? Hearing this, Shengguan Wanrong lightly tapped the tip of her nose. You child, you're not serious at all. You really dare to say anything? I'm telling the truth. I quite like children, especially white and chubby children. They're even more adorable. That little uncle is really taking advantage. At such a young age, I have to call him little uncle because of his seniority. She curled her lips and couldn't hide the smile in her eyes. When we get home this time, he should be able to call people. I'll give him candy and coax him to call me aunt. Nonsense. Shangwan Wanrong couldn't help but laugh. Looking at her, she couldn't hide the smile on her face. What aunt? Really nonsense. His seniority is there. Even I have to call him little uncle. Speaking of this, she finally felt that it was strange. That's right, it's really weird to call a baby uncle. If it really doesn't work, I'll have him call me big sister. In short, I have to coax him to call me a few times. Think about it. If he says the words little niece from his little mouth, it'll be strange. Speaking of this, Fengjiu rubbed her hands and shivered. This thing called seniority really wasn't fun. Listening to the two people's conversation, Ling Shuang on the side also revealed a smile on his face. Seeing Master and Madam getting along with each other warmly and comfortably, the tenderness between the two of them really made people envious. On the other side, Feng Xiao, who was hurrying on his way, saw an inn on the side of the mountain road. Outside the door, there was a lantern swaying in the wind. He originally planned to stay and rest, but after seeing the inn's unusual calmness, he decided to continue on his way and rest at the next stop. However, just as he was about to leave, he heard a hoarse voice come from behind him. Moreover, the inn's door opened at this time. Since you're here, why don't you stay for a night? He turned around and saw that it was a hunchbacked old man. Looking through the open door, it was not difficult to see that there was no one else in the inn. No need, Feng Xiao said with a hint of vigilance in his eyes. In this place, there were no villages to be seen, no shops to be seen. It was indeed strange for this inn to be opened here. Moreover, this hunchbacked old man's cultivation was not weak, but he was running an inn here. He felt that it was better for him to leave as soon as possible. Ha ha ha. The old man laughed. His voice was hoarse and unpleasant to the ears. He gazed at the man outside and said, "You're a foreigner, right? That's why I don't know where this place is. Those who know this path won't take it. Only some outsiders would choose this path by accident." Hearing this, Feng Xiao looked at him and asked, "And then?" Chapter 1624. Hearing this, Feng Xiao stared at the old man for a while and fell into deep thought. After a long while, he said, "If so, then I'll have to disturb you." With that, he walked inside. He wanted to see what was so strange about this shop. Did the old man have any ill intentions, as he said? The fire phoenix on his shoulder looked around and said to Feng Xiao, "I don't feel this place during the day, but after the sky darkens, the yin energy becomes heavier." Feng Xiao nodded. He knew that this place was strange. He had to be careful both outside and inside the inn. However, when he walked into the inn, he couldn't help but be slightly surprised. When he was outside, he couldn't see anyone inside, nor could he sense any aura. However, when he walked in, he realized that the inn had a barrier around it. The barrier covered everything inside, so he couldn't see the people inside from the outside, but he could see the outside from the inside. Moreover, it wasn't that there was no one inside. On the contrary, it was very familiar. Rogue cultivators sat in groups of 3 to 5. Some were drinking wine, some were tasting tea, and some were chatting and laughing. The lively scene formed a strong contrast to the outside. Seeing so many rogue cultivators inside, he had a new understanding of this shop. This shop was definitely strange, but many rogue cultivators still came in. Moreover, it seemed that nothing had happened. At this moment, when the people in the inn saw Feng Xiao enter, they all stopped what they were doing and looked over. After sizing him up, they looked away. So he's a mystic cultivator. I was wondering who he was. I wonder where this mystic cultivator came from. He actually dares to walk this path. It seems like he has some guts. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to this inn. Haha, that's true. Those people discussed. They didn't lower their voices because Feng Xiao was there. Instead, they talked with their backs to him. It was obvious that they didn't take him seriously. Compared to spirit cultivators, mystic cultivators would always be looked down upon. Unless you had powerful combat strength, you would be able to change people's opinion of you. Listening to those people, Feng Xiao didn't pay attention to them. Instead, he glanced inside and found that even if there were first and second floors here, there didn't seem to be any side rooms. Whether it was the first floor or the second floor, everyone was sitting at the table. Even if they were resting with their eyes closed, they were leaning against the wall. Thus, he looked at the old man and asked, "Are there no side rooms here?" "A side room?" The old man was startled, then he chuckled, "No, I only provide a place for you to spend the night. I don't provide a bed for you to sleep in." As he spoke, he walked to the counter and said to Feng Xiao, "Pay the overnight fee. 50 gold coins for the first floor and 100 gold coins for the second floor. Which floor do you want?" Hearing this, Feng Xiao looked up and down and asked, "Is there a difference?" Regardless of whether it was above or below, there were no beds to rest on, so why was the price different? Yes, of course there is a difference. The old man chuckled and looked at Feng Xiao. "It seems that you really don't know anything. Since that's the case, I'll remind you that with your strength, it's better for you to stay on the second floor." Feng Xiao wasn't lacking in money. Hearing the old man's words, he paid 100 gold coins and walked up to the second floor under the old man's lead. Only when he stepped onto the second floor did he realize that there was also a barrier on the second floor. Moreover, it was a defensive barrier that was even stronger than the one below. Chapter 1625. You can sit here. The old man led him to an empty table in the corner and asked, "Do you want some wine? The price is extra." "No need." Feng Xiao said, sitting down at the table and taking out some dry food from his space to eat. Seeing this, the old man smiled and walked down the stairs. "Hey, why are you taking this path too? And by yourself? You've got guts. You're also here for the elemental spirit fruit." A rogue cultivator looked at Feng Xiao and asked, "What elemental spirit fruit?" "I just asked for directions and knew it was closer, so I took this path. I don't know what elemental spirit fruit is." Feng Xiao said, not knowing anything about the elemental spirit fruit. So it's like that. Then I really don't know how to describe your luck." That person laughed and said, "Most of the rogue cultivators here are here for the elemental spirit fruit. It's a good thing, one can instantly increase one's strength by 1 level and increase one's strength by 1 stage. It's a good thing that's hard to come by. However, although this treasure is good, it's also very difficult to pick it. Because the elemental spirit fruit grows in extremely cold places and is guarded by thousands of ghosts, this mountain range is called the Ghost Mountain. Ordinary people don't dare to come here." Feng Xiao was slightly startled. He was just passing by, but he didn't expect to get involved in such a place. No wonder the old man said that it's impossible to walk out of this mountain at night. So this was the reason. The land of 10,000 ghosts. That's a place of extreme cold. Moreover, it seems that tonight is a full moon night, when the yin qi is abundant. If he stayed here, would it be? He was a little worried, and at this time, Fire Phoenix's low voice entered his ears. "Don't worry, I'm here for you." After hearing Fire Phoenix's voice, Feng Xiao's expression relaxed and he exhaled softly. Yes, he wasn't alone on this journey, he still had Fire Phoenix by his side. If there really was something he couldn't handle, Fire Phoenix would be there. Thinking of this, he calmed himself down. He didn't want any elemental spirit fruit, so it was better to take advantage of this time to rest and restore his spirit. Thus, he began to eat the rations in his hand and prepared some for the fire phoenix. When the rogue cultivators who were drinking and chatting saw the fire phoenix jump down from his shoulder, they all laughed. "It can't be. Is this bird your contracted beast? It's too shabby. What's the use of a bird that can be pinched to death? I didn't expect a mystic's contracted beast to be like this." That's right. Mystics aren't strong enough to begin with, and they even contracted such a small bird. This is really an eye-opener. Ha 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 ha. Fingzhou, who was eating his rations, looked up at them and said, "I think, what kind of contract beast I contract has nothing to do with you. It doesn't matter. We're just interested in watching." As one of them spoke, he shook his head and ignored Feng Xiao. Instead, he said to the rogue cultivators at the same table, Come, let's have another drink." Feng Xiao averted his gaze. After instructing Fire Phoenix, he set up a small soundproof barrier around him, then closed his eyes and leaned against the wall to rest. Without the voices outside, the entire world seemed to have quieted down. Coupled with the fatigue from rushing all the way here, he actually fell into a deep sleep not long after. Chapter 1626. It was as if there were pairs of invisible hands slapping on the door of the inn, making banging sounds. The lanterns outside the door swayed in the wind. The flames had been extinguished by the wind, leaving only darkness. Hearing the commotion outside, everyone in the inn quieted down. Except for a few people who were drunk and lying on the table, everyone else stared outside with vigilant expressions. The people on the first floor of the inn were like this, and so were the people on the second floor. However, compared to the people on the first floor, they were more at ease because they had an extra layer of protective enchantments. While everyone was vigilantly staring below, in the corner of the second floor, Feng Xiao was still sleeping. Because he had set up a soundproof enchantment, he couldn't hear the sounds outside. Naturally, he also couldn't hear the strange and frightening whistling of the wind. Gee! This person is quite carefree. A rogue cultivator glanced at the sleeping Feng Xiao and sneered, "Later, you won't even know how you die." The others also glanced at Feng Xiao in the corner, waiting for a good show. As the night deepened, it was getting closer to midnight. Some people were already preparing to go out, while others planned to watch from the sidelines. The origin spirit fruit had to be obtained. It was less than 100 meters away in the back of the valley. The people on the first floor went out together. Although they knew that the yin energy was the strongest at midnight, tonight was the time when the origin spirit fruit was ripe and fell to the ground. Even 100 ghosts would fight for it, let alone them. One had to know that even if a ghost obtained the origin spirit fruit, it would still have 100 years of cultivation. And if they wanted the origin spirit fruit, they would have to compete with 100 ghosts. The people in the inn went out one by one. Some went out together, some went out alone. Gradually, even the people on the second floor went out. Only the old man shuttled back and forth in the inn to pack things. When he came to the second floor, he found Feng Xiao sleeping in the corner. The old man smiled and walked to the side to sit down. At midnight, the entire moon was covered by dark clouds. At this moment, the inn's door was blown open by a gust of wind. The chilly night wind was accompanied by ghostly cries and wolf howls. Faintly, a white shadow floated in. The table on the first floor was destroyed and pushed to the side. Countless white shadows floated in from the door and ran around. The few drunk rogue cultivators on the first floor suddenly stood up after a fierce shake. Ha 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 ha. Loud laughter rang out from the few rogue cultivators. Under the suppression of the pressure, the airflow in the air vibrated faintly. Their faces were ferocious. After sweeping their gazes fell on the few remaining people on the second floor. They have been possessed by ghosts. The expressions of the rogue cultivators on the second floor changed. When they saw the possessed rogue cultivators trying to break the barrier and come up, they couldn't help but look at the old man sitting on the side. Can this barrier stop them? The old man stroked his beard and glanced down. This barrier is used to stop ghosts, not people. If there are no accidents, this barrier won't be able to block more than a few attacks from those people. What? You damn old man. If it can't block more than a few attacks, you still have the nerve to charge us 100 gold coins. The rogue cultivators shouted in exasperation. They raised their swords and prepared to fight. Chapter 1627. Feng Xiao, who was in the corner, was also targeted by the ghosts. However, the masculine aura on his body was too strong, so not many ghosts stepped forward. Only a few of them with heavier aura dashed forward, but they did not dare to approach him. This was because the fire phoenix, who had landed on Feng Xiao's shoulder, had released her aura. The powerful ancient aura and the masculine aura on Feng Xiao's body made the ghosts not dare to approach him. Furthermore, another reason was that he was the emperor of the Phoenix dynasty. His aura was extremely intimidating. Other than a few ferocious ghosts, ordinary ghosts did not dare to offend him. When they saw the ghosts surrounding the sleeping person and not daring to approach him, the wandering cultivators on the second floor could not help but widen their eyes in astonishment. Who on earth is that person? These ghosts are actually afraid of him. Even the elder's eyes flashed with astonishment. He did not expect to see such a scene. He had originally thought that Feng Xiao's strength was ordinary, but looking at the situation now, it seemed that he had underestimated him. The ghosts could not do anything to Feng Xiao, but the wandering cultivators who had been possessed by ghosts raised their swords and sabers and fiercely slashed at the sleeping Feng Xiao. Seeing this, the fire phoenix woke Feng Xiao up. Almost at the same time that the fire phoenix spoke, Feng Xiao opened his eyes and drew the sword at his waist, blocking the wandering cultivator's attack. Clang! Whoosh! He suddenly stood up, and his aura immediately filled the air. This was the aura and pressure of a martial saint. It was powerful and had the aura of a ruler who had been in a high position for a long time. His tiger eyes were sharp and intimidating. Before he had become the emperor of the Phoenix dynasty, he had been the imperial general. His battle strength was astonishing, and his aura was even more intimidating. Now that his battle intent had been aroused, the aura in the air on the second floor seemed to fluctuate. When the others saw this, their eyes narrowed. Wasn't this person a mystic? How could he have such an aura? The elder retreated to the back and watched quietly. Looking at the situation, only this person in the entire inn was surprised. The sharp swords and sabers mercilessly slashed out, and a sharp and intimidating aura spread out in the air. The clanging sounds of swords and sabers clashing against each other, as well as the screams and wails of the ghosts, entered one's ears. A gale suddenly rose and the inn was blown to the point that it was on the verge of collapsing. The wooden blocks on the roof fell down amidst the gale and the airflow. The few large pillars supporting the inn were cut down by the sword chi during the battle. With a rumbling sound, the entire inn instantly collapsed into ruins. At the same time, several figures flew out from the ruins. They rushed out of the collapsed inn and stood in the middle of the night. When Feng Xiao, who was standing in the air, saw the scene outside the inn, his face couldn't help but become serious. Everywhere he looked, there were ghosts everywhere. The whole mountain was filled with a gloomy aura. Howling sounds were constantly coming out. It was very frightening. It really is the land of 10,000 ghosts. He murmured, frowning slightly. He had no intention of getting involved in these matters, but the current situation seemed to be beyond his control. Since we're here, let's get involved. Didn't they say that the origin spirit fruit was something good? Let's go pick one and join in the fun. The fire phoenix stared at the front with great interest. Since they couldn't avoid it, they might as well snatch it. Chapter 1628. Feng Shao glanced at the few of them and saw that the old man had an air current protecting him, like a protective shield, preventing the ghosts from approaching him. As for the other few people, they were in a sorry state and were still killing the ghosts that were pouncing towards them. Seeing this, Feng Shao threw out his flying device and flew forward with his sword in hand. He infused his sword with spiritual energy and swung it until he was 100 meters away. Seeing the scene in the valley, he was about to go down when he heard the fire phoenix's voice. "Wait a minute. What's wrong?" Feng Shao asked. "There's poisonous fog down there. That holy spirit fruit should be a glowing object in the middle of the poisonous fog. If we go down there, it'll be difficult for us to escape. Listen to me, we'll do this." The fire phoenix suggested and told him the plan. Hearing this, Feng Shao paused and asked, "Are you confident?" "Don't worry, we can deal with these small problems." The fire phoenix raised its chin and said confidently. "Good." After he responded, he turned around and headed towards the path he wanted to pass through. While no one was paying attention, the fire phoenix flapped its wings and flew down the valley. Seeing Feng Shao heading in another direction, other than the old man, everyone else thought that he was afraid and did not dare to go down, so they sneered, "I thought that he really had some skills and was a real man, but it seems that he's just a so-so." The old man did not say anything. He watched as Feng Shao rushed out of the ghost array and entered the mountain of enchantment, gradually disappearing into the distance. The mountain of enchantment in the ghost mountain was set up with a spirit enchantment. It was not something an ordinary cultivator could walk out of. Especially at night, the array was even more changeable. He wanted to go out and take a look, but he was entangled by the ghosts that suddenly rushed out, so he could only retreat step by step. About the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the valley suddenly emitted a phoenix cry, and flames soared into the sky. The raging flames instantly spread to the entire mountain top, and the surging flames illuminated the entire night. The raging flames drove away the cold air, and for a moment, everyone was shocked and screamed. Hiss! It's the ancient divine beast fire phoenix. Heavens! Why would the ancient divine beast fire phoenix appear here? Hiss! This fire phoenix is actually here to steal the holy spirit fruit. Where did this ancient fire phoenix come from? Who is its owner? Damn it! What did it want the holy spirit fruit for? That thing is useless to it. For a moment, cries of surprise and screams mixed together. Those rogue cultivators all felt that it was inconceivable. Although the holy spirit fruit was a saint-grade spirit fruit, and eating one could greatly increase one's strength, it was not an existence that defied the natural order. However, such a holy spirit fruit had actually attracted an ancient divine beast to fight over it. Furthermore, it had immediately isolated the surroundings with a fire, and the holy spirit fruit was also plucked by it. Seeing the fire phoenix soar into the sky, flapping its wings and disappearing into the night, everyone was dumbfounded. They had worked hard for more than half a month, guarding for more than half a month, all for the sake of this holy spirit fruit. But in the end, a bird had beaten them to it. Fine! Even if this bird was an ancient divine bird, why would an ancient divine beast appear out of nowhere to snatch something from them? Which despicable bastard had ordered it to do this? It was too simple, too hateful. Chapter 1629. 10 days later, deep in the mountains, 3 bolts of heavenly lightning struck down one after another. Then, peace was restored. The heavenly lightning came suddenly and left quickly. Because it was deep in the mountains, it did not alarm anyone. Deep in the mountains, Feng Shao, who was sitting cross-legged, exhaled softly. He slowly opened his eyes, and a strange light appeared in his eyes. He had used 10 days to advance from the martial saint realm to the martial god realm after consuming the origin spirit fruit. Finally, he had successfully entered the martial god realm and became a martial god. The sudden increase in his strength had restored his appearance to its peak. Now, it was as if time had not left any traces on his face. Now, even if Fengjiu stood in front of him, he probably would not be able to recognize him. Upon entering the martial god realm, one's strength would be comparable to a fairy realm fighter. Not only would the aura around one's body be greatly different, but even a single gaze or the release of pressure would have an absolute power of intimidation. This was especially so since there were very few Xian martial artists who could cultivate to the martial god realm. It's as if you've changed into a different person. The fire phoenix looked down from a branch and was very surprised. Its strength had increased because it had entered the growth period, but the human's strength had increased because he had become younger. Fire Phoenix, thank you so much for these past few days. He thanked it in a low and dignified voice. It's nothing. The Fire Phoenix flapped its wings and said, Xiao Jiu will be very happy that you've advanced. But now that you've become younger, Xiao Jiu probably won't be able to recognize you as her father. Look at you now, you're almost catching up to Guan Shilin. Hearing this, Feng Xiao could not help but laugh loudly, you're exaggerating. Although he said this, he was in high spirits. He was very happy that he had successfully advanced to the martial god realm. After all, every time he advanced to the next level, his strength would increase again. It was a good thing for him, his family, and the empire. Only when his strength was so strong that he could not be offended could he protect the people he wanted to protect. We have to set off quickly. We've been delayed for so long. I wonder where Xiao Jiu and the rest are now. We have to find people from Yandian to ask for information. Then let's go. The Fire Phoenix flew to his shoulder and stopped. After Feng Xiao took out his aircraft and threw it into the air, the man and the bird left the forest where they had stayed for 10 days. On the other side, Fengjiu and the others did not leave. They had originally planned to return to the Phoenix dynasty, but when they received news that the ancient divine beast, Fire Phoenix, had appeared in the border city, they cancelled their plans to return. While waiting, they asked around for more information. The ancient mythical beast Fire Phoenix had appeared. There was only one primordial Fire Phoenix in this world, and it was her contracted beast. Now that it had appeared here, it must be the Fire Phoenix from the Phoenix dynasty. Other than her father, there was probably no one else who could come with it. However, she did not expect her father to put aside everything he was doing and bring the Fire Phoenix along. He must be worried about them, or perhaps he was anxious to see her mother. Xiao Jiu. Chapter 1630. Don't worry. With the Fire Phoenix accompanying him, nothing will happen to father. Fengjiu chuckled. Holding her hand, he pulled her to the table and sat down. Mose has already sent people to look for him. There should be news of father soon. Also, we'll wait for him here. This way, we won't miss him. As long as there's news and we know where he is, we can go over. I hope he's fine. Shengwan Wanrong sighed. She was still a bit worried. Because she knew from her daughter that Feng Zhao's strength wasn't very strong. If that kind of strength went to a place like the 8 great empires, she was afraid. Ghost Doctor. Hui Lang walked in with a smile on his face. Master sent me to tell you good news. Is there news of my father? Fengjiu looked at him and asked. No. Hui Lang shook his head and said, this is strange. Until now, we still haven't found your father's whereabouts. Master guessed that the path he took was a bit remote. If we want news of him, it will take another 2 days. The good news I came to tell you is that there's news of the Wanyan Qianhua you asked us to look for. Oh. Her expression lit up and she asked, "Where is she?" The Wanyan family is a hidden family. News and matters related to the Wanyan family are rarely spread outside. Our people only found out that the Wanyan family is a hidden family and that their family may be related to some forces in other places. We don't know anything else. Hearing this, Fengzhou nodded. Since it's a hidden family, they naturally won't easily let outsiders find out about their news. Fine, let's leave it at that. If fate wills it, we'll still see her in the future. Originally, she wanted to take advantage of this time to look for Wanyan Qianhua, her sworn sister, in the 8 great empires. She didn't expect that the other party's family was a hidden family. Since that was the case, she didn't investigate further. She believed that if fate willed it, they would meet sooner or later. That's right, where's your master? Why haven't I seen the two of them? Feng Zhou asked. She thought about how she hadn't seen Xianyuan Mo's these past few days. Where did he go? Recently, Master has been cultivating whenever he has time. He just advanced 2 days ago and is currently researching a new sword technique in the training field. Ghost Doctor, do you want to go over and take a look? Hui Lang couldn't help but suggest. Recently, because the Ghost Doctor had been accompanying her mother, Mistress was like a resentful woman who had been left out in the cold. If she wasn't cultivating, she would be practicing the sword. If it was anyone else, he would have directly chased them away, but this person was the Ghost Doctor's mother. No matter how dissatisfied his master was, he couldn't open his mouth to chase them away. He could only keep it in his heart, or else he would vent his anger on them. Hearing this, Fengzhou's eyes flashed. She said to her mother, "Mother, I'm going to check on Mo's. If you're bored, I'll call Ling Shuang over to accompany you." "It's fine, you can go. You don't have to stay here with Mother all day. If you have time, spend more time with Mo's. You're both about to get married. In the past, you were always separated from each other. Right now, it's a good time to cultivate your feelings." She gently patted Fengzhou's hand, indicating for her to go. Then I'll be going." Fengzhou stood up and followed Hui Lang out. She asked, "Hui Lang, how's your master's mood today?" Behind them, Shengguan Wanrong smiled slightly when she heard her daughter's voice. Her heart was filled with satisfaction. Chapter 1631. Master always keeps a straight face, so it's hard to tell. The Ghost Doctor will know when she gets there. Hui Lang grinned as he spoke, while muttering in his heart. Even if he knew that Master was in a bad mood due to being neglected, he still couldn't expose Master's secret. Hearing this, Fengzhou raised her eyebrows, and with a smile on her lips, she walked forward. Until she arrived at the training grounds, and saw the black-clothed Xianyuan Mo's with a powerful aura practicing his sword. Her eyes slightly moved, and in the next moment, she lightly tapped the ground with the tip of her foot, and leapt up, taking out the Qingfeng sword from the air and stabbing it towards him. Xianyuan Mo's glanced at her from the corner of his eyes, and saw her flying towards him, so he waved the sword in his hand to block. Only to hear the sound of a stream of air passing by, and the sharp qi of the sword rushed towards Fengzhou. Clang! The two swords collided, and a clear clang rang out. Sparks flew out, and the two streams of air mixed with each other, and then disappeared without a trace. Seeing the sword in Xianyuan Mo's hand, Fengzhou's eyes lit up. It's the Xianyuan sword. This was his sword, and it was also an ancient divine sword that wasn't inferior to the Qingfeng sword. In that moment, she had the thought of comparing notes with him, and wanted to see what would happen if these two swords collided. Thus, the hand holding the sword turned, and she once again leaned forward. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mo's deep black eyes moved, and he immediately retreated. The tip of his sword turned, and his sword form changed. He used the sword in his hand to wrap around her Qingfeng sword, and led her to move, leading her in swinging the sword. Fengjiu was surprised, and no longer attacked, but followed him. Wherever his sword went, how he swung it, she would follow and learn. After a whole set of sword moves, she was surprised to find that this set of sword moves could be used alone or in pairs. A single person's sword was fierce, and the sword's edge was cold, but when two people swung their swords, the power was stronger, and they could release a stronger battle strength. Hui Lang and Ying Yi stood outside the training grounds, watching the two people, one black and one red. The man was domineering, and the woman was beautiful. The calm black clothes and the dazzling red clothes intertwined, constantly changing, giving people a visual impact, and making people unable to move their eyes away from the two people. Master and the Ghost Doctor are really too compatible. Say, how can there be a person like the Ghost Doctor in this world? Before meeting the Ghost Doctor, Master, there was never a woman, and I was worried that he was gay, but luckily, a woman like the Ghost Doctor appeared. Hui Lang grinned, feeling both emotional and gratified. Although they were master and servant, they were not ordinary masters and servants. Seeing that Master could meet someone he liked, he was really happy. Ying Yi, who was beside him, glanced at him. You're lamenting that you haven't met the right woman. I remember that you've been single for over 20 years, so why aren't you worried that you'll be gay? Hearing this, Hui Lang's eyes flashed with bad intentions. He looked at Ying Yi, and suddenly revealed a shy and embarrassed smile. He reached out and hugged his arm, asking with a smile, Ying Yi, how did you know? You also felt it, right? As he spoke, that hand kept rubbing his arm, making Ying Yi jump up in shock. He quickly slapped his hand away, and stared at him defensively. If you want to talk, then talk. What's a grown man like you doing being so clumsy? Chapter 1632. Stop. Ying Yi hurriedly interrupted him and stared at him. Who's your childhood sweetheart? Don't talk nonsense. Aren't we? We grew up together, and we trained together, ate and slept together. We even bathed together and wore the same pants. I've even seen you naked. We're so close. Aren't we childhood sweethearts? As soon as Ying heard his words, his face darkened, and the hairs on his body stood up. Especially when his eyes were darting around, it made him feel very strange. Why didn't he notice Hui Lang's interest in this before? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shiver. He stared at him warily and quickly flashed away to wait on the other side. Watching him leave as if he was running for his life, Hui Lang smiled triumphantly. You want to fight me with paralysis? Aren't you looking for trouble? He snorted and watched the two people practicing swordsmanship in the martial arts field. After about 2 hours, the two of them stopped. At that moment, Feng Jiu was already drenched in sweat, but her eyes shone brightly. She looked at Xianyuanmo's in front of her and asked excitedly, Did you really create this set of sword techniques? Do you like it? Xianyuanmo smiled faintly and reached out to tuck her hair behind her ear. His actions were intimate and natural. Yes, I like it very much. This set of swordsmanship is very lethal. If two people work together, they can complement each other. Their fighting power is extraordinary, and it's not easy to break the sword moves. By the way, what's the name of this set of swordsmanship? Xianyuanmo only felt his heart melt when he saw the excitement on her face and how she looked at him with amazement in her eyes. He also felt a sense of accomplishment. His manly heart was completely satisfied, and he faintly felt a sense of pride. This set of swordsmanship is called the Dragon Fengjiu sword. If it's used alone, then I'll use the dragon-shaped 9 swords, and you'll use the Phoenix Shadow 9 swords. This set of swordsmanship can be combined and disassembled, with endless changes. If it's combined into one, its power will greatly increase. Speaking of this, his voice paused, and a touch of gentleness and affection appeared in his deep eyes. He slowly said, "Moreover, I created this set of swordsmanship for you and me. You have to remember the mantra I taught you before, and use it with this set of swordsmanship. In the future, you can pass this set of swordsmanship down to our children." What he wanted was actually very simple. He wanted to live together with his beloved and build a warm and happy home. Looking down, he felt that he wasn't far from his goal. Fengjiu hearing this and laughed, "We haven't even married yet and you're already talking about children. You're too impatient." Ghost Doctor, even if Master isn't impatient, I'm impatient. I also want to have a little master. Hui Lang grinned and raised his voice as he spoke. Seeing the two of them looking at him, he laughed and said, "Moreover, if you have a little master soon, I, Hui Lang, can even help you raise one." Hearing this, Fengjiu thought of Hui Lang carrying a little child on his back and holding a little child on his back. He couldn't help but laugh. In Yi appeared out of nowhere and said indifferently, "If you really have a little master for you to raise, I won't be at ease." Chapter 1633. That's enough, we've digressed. What's there to talk about when I haven't even seen his shadow? Fengjiu smiled and raised her hand, indicating for the two to stop talking. She then turned to Xianyuan and said, "Do you want to go back and take a bath?" Xianyuan eyes moved, a dark light flashing through his deep eyes. He stared at her and moved his lips, "Yes." "Okay. Then let's go." She put away the Qingfeng sword, not noticing his deep eyes. She reached out and took his hand to leave with him. Watching the two leave, Hui Lang reached out and put his arm around Ing Yi's shoulder. He said mysteriously, "Hey, did you see the master's eyes?" Ing Yi glanced at him and shook off his hand, "Go away." Then he strode away and followed behind the two people in front of him, not too far nor too close. Back in the courtyard, Fengjiu ordered the servants to prepare hot water for her bath. When she entered the room, she found that Xianyuan had followed her in. She couldn't help but be startled. "You're not going to take a bath?" Xianyuan looked at her, "Of course." He entered the room and looked around. Then he came in front of the steaming hot tub. "It's just right for you to take a bath here. This tub is definitely big enough." Hearing this, Fengjiu's mouth twitched. "You're not serious, are you?" Xuanyuan's eyes moved slightly. He stepped forward and hugged her who was standing by the door. At the same time, he waved his hand to close the door and locked it. Fengjiu only felt her whole body being lifted up and directly walked inside. She was so stunned that she didn't know how to react. Xianyuan was a man who was inwardly passionate. He always had a cold and serious expression on his face, but he always wore red underwear. In the past, although he was impatient, he would always restrain himself. Especially when her mother was here, he didn't cross the line. But today, "Open your hand." His deep and magnetic voice entered her ears, and the man's unique warm breath sprayed behind her ear, making her feel numb, and she couldn't help but have goosebumps. Only then did she react. She was already standing by the side of the tub, and he was standing behind her. She didn't know what she was thinking, but she actually did as he said. She opened her hands and let him take off her clothes and outerwear. The red robe was undone. He raised his hand and threw the red robe to the screen. His hand moved up from her waist. When he touched her flat chest, he hugged her from behind and asked in her ear, "You're still wearing your chest?" "Yes." She replied, "I'm wearing men's clothing to wear a bra. When we're married, you're not to wear it anymore. After we get married." His voice was low and hoarse. His hand went to her underwear and took it off. Then he turned her around to face him. When he saw her snow-white shoulders and beautiful and sexy collarbones in front of him, his eyes couldn't help but darken. His gaze gradually moved down and fell on the white cloth wrapped around her chest. He remembered that she was full here. Now, such a full existence was squeezed under the white cloth. Looking at it made his heart ache, but at the same time, a flame ignited in his heart. Chapter 1634. When a slight bang sounded, the cloth was torn into small pieces and scattered on the ground, jumping into Xianyuanmo's eyes. It made his breathing a little heavier, and a dark light floated in the depths of his eyes. His throat involuntarily swallowed, and his deep and burning gaze fell on her chest, unable to move away for a long time. So beautiful that his voice was hoarse, and his breathing seemed to have frozen for a moment. His whole person and mind became restless, and he had an impulse to fiercely take her. However, he had said that he would save the most beautiful night between them for the wedding night, so, looking at her beautiful face in front of him, her eyebrows were slightly raised, her eyes were slightly raised, and the corners of her lips were slightly curved with a trace of charm as she looked at him. Her entire body was emitting an enchanting and evil charm that made people want to commit a crime. He raised his hand, and almost in the blink of an eye, he took off his clothes. He reached out and took her into the bathtub. As soon as the two of them entered the bathtub, the water splashed out and overflowed all over the ground. The sound of water splashing could be heard, and the petals floated in the clouds. The faint fragrance of flowers filled the air and intertwined with that burning passion. In the evening, Xianyuan, who had nothing to do, personally cooked a few dishes. Because Chen Dao and Luo Heng had already gone back, there were not many people present, so she only cooked a few dishes. After the dishes were all arranged, Xianyuan looked around and asked, "Ling Shuang, where is Xiaozhou? Why haven't I seen them yet?" Ling Shuang pondered for a moment and said, "Master should be in the courtyard. Then you go call Xiaozhou and Mose over for dinner." Xianyuan smiled and sat down to rest. She poured a cup of tea and took a sip, preparing to wait for them to come over. "Yes." Ling Shuang responded and turned to walk out. On the other side, Hui Lang Xingyi, who was guarding outside the Fengjiu courtyard, did not say anything, but his eyes were brighter than usual. Yingyi only occasionally glanced at the main courtyard, as if waiting for the two masters to come out. Hui Lang, on the other hand, was staring straight at the main courtyard. His heart was itching with curiosity. Did Master eat the ghost doctor? He hadn't heard anything for the entire afternoon. Could it be that the two of them were taking a nap inside? Nothing at all. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but ask, "Yingyi, do you think it's done?" After asking for a while, he didn't hear any response from Ying, so he turned his head and elbowed him. "I'm asking you a question." "I don't know," Yingyi said coldly. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Ling Shuang not far away, so he signaled him to look at the person. Seeing Ling Shuang, Hui Lang grinned and quickly stood in front of her. "Ling Shuang, why are you here? What's the matter?" Seeing Hui Lang standing in front of her, Ling Shuang frowned, glanced at Yingyi, and asked, "Why are you two here? Is the Yama Lord also here?" "That's good. Madam prepared dinner and asked me to invite Master and the others over." She was about to walk forward when she was stopped again. Wait. Hui Lang looked at her with embarrassment. "Master and the others haven't come out yet. Don't go over and ruin things." "Ruin what?" Ling Shuang was startled and glanced at the courtyard. There were no two figures in the courtyard. Then, were they in the room? Chapter 1635. Dressed in a black robe, Xianyuan walked out with one hand behind his back and the other in front of his abdomen. When he saw the three people standing outside the courtyard, he asked, "Is something the matter?" At this time, his voice was lazy and magnetic, as if he had just woken up and tasted the sweetness of a young man. There was a trace of satisfaction between his brows that could not be concealed. Seeing his expression, Hui Lang, Ying Yi, and Leng Shuang all had different expressions, especially Leng Shuang, who did not know what was going on. However, she did not think too much about it and just suppressed her doubts in her heart. She reported, "Madam has already prepared dinner and is inviting Yama Lord and Master to come and eat. Xiao Jiu is still sleeping, let her sleep a bit more." Xianyuan Mose had just finished speaking when he heard Feng Jiu's voice behind him. "I'm up, let's go together." Feng Jiu lazily walked out of the room and rubbed her sore hands. At the same time, she angrily glared at the man who was smiling at her. This guy, she thought he would not be able to resist taking out his gun. She did not expect that in the end, the one who was tired to death was her 5 fingers. Rubbing her sore hands, she did not know what to feel in her heart. If it were another man, the raw rice would have been cooked long ago. But his heart moved, and in the end, he still did not cross the last line of defense. She knew that he cherished her, but seeing him endure it like that, her heart could not bear it. Otherwise, her 5 fingers would not be tired and numb today. "Aren't you tired? How about I have them bring the food over?" He stepped forward and hugged her. Looking at her red dress, her black hair falling behind her, and her lazy and charming appearance, he could not help but want to hide her and not let anyone see her. "You also know how to feel tired. My hands are so sore." She leaned into his arms and complained in a low voice. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose's eyes flashed with a deep smile. He said in a low voice by her ear, "That only proves that your man's ability is too strong. You will have a happy sex life in the future." Hearing this, Feng Jiu thought of the previous scene and could not help but blush. She rolled her eyes and pushed him away. "Leng Shuang, let's go." With that, she left with Leng Shuang. As he watched her walk forward, Xianyuan Mose let out a deep and magnetic laugh. His deep, smiling, and tender gaze fell upon the red figure. He paused for a moment, then followed her footsteps with his hands behind his back. The two people's voices were lowered and Hui Lang and Ying Yi could only vaguely hear 1 or 2 sentences. However, seeing Master's satisfied expression, they could not help but guess, did Master really eat the ghost doctor? They went to the front to eat. During this time, Shangguan Wanrong saw that her hands were trembling and asked with concern. This made Feng Jiu and Xianyuan Mose both feel uncomfortable. In the end, they just made up an excuse. After eating, the two of them left in a hurry, preparing to go out for a stroll. In regards to this, Shangguan Wanrong was naturally very happy. Especially seeing that the two of them had such a good relationship, as their mother, she was very happy. Chapter 1636. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose laughed softly, "All right." As the night deepened, the lanterns on the streets lit up and people came and went. When the two of them walked into the streets and blended into the crowd, the surrounding men and women couldn't help but look at them. It was because the man was domineering and the woman was beautiful. One in black and one in red, they were a perfect match. It was as if they were celestial beings who had walked down from the heavens and didn't belong to the mortal world. Because the surrounding people's eyes were following them closely, the two of them didn't walk for too long. After walking around the city once, they went to the base of Yen Dian's power. After a few more days, there was still no news from Feng Shao. This made Feng Jiu feel strange. Why was there no news? Did he not enter the city? That shouldn't be right. Until one afternoon, when she was resting on the roof with her eyes closed, she saw a figure in black robes walk out from the streets and stop in front of their courtyard. Seeing that person, she narrowed her eyes. That person looked to be in his 20s or 30s. He was tall and sturdy and was covered in dust. There was a colorful little bird perched on his shoulder. The more she looked at him, the more familiar he felt, especially that little bird. Fire Phoenix. She muttered softly, feeling a little surprised. She quickly got up and tapped the ground with the tip of her foot to jump over the wall of the courtyard. She landed in front of the man and stared at his smiling face. When she saw that familiar face, she could not help but open her mouth in disbelief. Father. Xiao Zhou, I didn't expect you to recognize father at a glance. Ha 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 ha, as expected of my daughter. Feng Xiao laughed loudly, his mellow voice carrying laughter. On the way here, he was saying that you definitely wouldn't recognize him. Fire Phoenix flapped its wings and flew to Fengzhou's shoulder, intimately rubbing against her face. Fengzhou gently stroked Fire Phoenix's feathers with her fingers and smiled. Thank you, Fire Phoenix, for protecting my father on the way here safely. You're welcome. This is what I should do. The Fire Phoenix raised its head and stood on her shoulder, asking, You won't blame me for not listening to you and staying in the Phoenix dynasty as a guardian beast, right? How could that be? Grandpa and the others are still there. It's fine. She giggled before looking at her father and asked, Father, when did you become a martial god? No wonder the people in Yandian said they couldn't find any news about you. Ha ha ha, of course, my strength has reached the martial god realm, and my appearance has changed. Naturally, they won't be able to recognize me. With a bright smile, he told her about what had happened on the road and asked, That's right, how is your mother now? Is she all right? Father, don't worry. Mother is fine. We originally planned to go back, but we heard the news that you came here, so we waited for you here. We haven't heard from you these days, so Mother has been worried. If she sees you later, I think she'll be very happy. Fengzhou and Feng Xiao were chatting as they walked into the courtyard. Xianyuan Mose just happened to walk out. When he saw Fengzhou intimately leaning against a man, he couldn't help but frown. His gaze was fixed on the man's arm around her shoulder. Chapter 1637. However, just as he was about to step forward and test the man's skills, he heard Fengzhou's voice. Zay, my father is here. Look, isn't he like a different person? No wonder we haven't heard from him. Hearing Fengzhou's smiling words, Xianyuan Mose's face stiffened. For a moment, his expression was a little strange, but it returned to normal in the blink of an eye. Fortunately, he always had a cold face. At this time, if one didn't pay attention, they wouldn't be able to see that he was different. Congratulations, Uncle Xiao, on becoming a martial god. He stepped forward and congratulated. His voice was as calm as usual, and no one could hear the abnormality from before. Hee, long time no see. How have you been? Feng Xiao stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder. He said, Thank you very much. I know you've helped a lot. This is what I should do. He smiled and said to Fengzhou, Since Uncle Xiao is here, let's take him to see Aunt Rong first. Yes, Father. Mother has been waiting for you for a long time. If she knew you were here, she would be very happy. Let's go, I'll take you to see her first. Fengzhou took his hand and led him inside. Hearing this, Feng Zhao's heart moved. He was a little expectant, but also a little nervous. For a moment, his heart beat uneasily. Wanrong was about to see her. He had forgotten about her for more than 10 years and let her bear everything alone. Every time he thought of this, guilt rose in his heart. Did she blame him? Did she blame him? He didn't know how he followed his daughter inside. He only knew that along the way, people came out to greet him. His mind was muddled, and he only knew that his heart was nervous. After turning a few small paths, they came to a courtyard. Fengzhou stopped and didn't follow in. She said to her father beside her, father, mother is inside. You can go in. As soon as her voice fell, she retreated and walked with Xianyuan to the courtyard in front. Ling Shuang in the courtyard saw them and retreated silently. Although she didn't recognize who they were, she tactfully didn't ask and quietly left when she saw that her master didn't come in and instead retreated. Feng Xiao stepped in. He walked lightly, as if afraid of scaring her. As he walked, he looked at the elegant figure trimming the flowers and plants in the courtyard. Her exquisite and graceful figure, her silky smooth black hair, her simple and elegant dress, and her gentle and soft aura, all of them were familiar to him, and all of them made his heart skip a beat. It was as if he had returned to the moment when he first met her. Shengguan Wanrong, who had her back to him, didn't know that the person behind her was Feng Xiao. She thought that the person standing behind her was Ling Shuang. So, without turning her head, she said, "Ling Shuang, bring the watering can over and water it." Hearing this, Feng Xiao stopped and looked around. His gaze fell on the watering can. He walked over and took the watering can, then walked forward and handed it to her. Shengguan Wanrong reached out to take it. However, when her gaze fell on the hand holding the watering can, she couldn't help but be startled. Instinctively, she looked back. With this look, her entire person was stunned. Familiar eyebrows, familiar eyes, familiar face, familiar aura. Feng Xiao. Chapter 1638. Wanrong. He reached out and pulled her into his embrace. His voice was choked with emotion as he said, "You've suffered." Shengguan Wanrong shook her head and hugged him tightly with both hands. "It's good that you're here. I never thought I'd be able to see you again, or see our daughter. Our daughter is truly outstanding. If it weren't for her, many things would have been impossible. The reason we're able to reunite today is also because of her." As Feng Xiao spoke, he held her hand and led her to the table in the courtyard. Looking at her husband in front of her, she had an indescribable feeling in her heart. After so many years of suffering, after so many years of enduring, she finally managed to wait for a day of reunion. "I never thought that after so many years, with your memories of me sealed, you would still be able to single-handedly raise our daughter. I originally thought that you would definitely forget about me and marry someone else. Who would have thought that Xiao Jiu would tell me that you've been alone all these years? I'm glad that I've always been alone. Otherwise, how could I be worthy of your many years of waiting?" He held her hand and said, "Wanrong, our family will never be separated again. I'll bring you back to our home. Emin, we'll never be separated again." She nestled into his embrace. Her heart that had been floating for so many years finally found a harbor to shore. In front, Fengzhou accompanied Xianyuan as they walked in the front courtyard. As they strolled, she thought of the scene from before and asked with a smile, "Did you not recognize my father when you saw him?" Hearing this, Xianyuan felt a bit uncomfortable. He looked away and said, "I didn't recognize him. And then I saw that you looked like you wanted to kill someone when you stared at my father." She smiled like a fox, her eyes shining as she stared at him. "Were you jealous? Jealous of my father?" "No. Is that so?" She raised her eyebrows and teasingly said, "Why do I feel like it's not like that? Your father is here. Why don't we go see my father before we return to the Phoenix dynasty and discuss the marriage?" He changed the topic, feeling that he had nowhere to hide under her teasing gaze. Hearing that, Fengzhou stopped joking and said, "Then I'll tell them later and see what they plan to do. Tomorrow, we'll ask them what they think." Xianyuan said, staring at her, "I've collected a lot of good things to prepare for you as betrothal gifts. Whether it's the betrothal gifts or the wedding day, I'll do it in a grand manner, letting everyone know that your Fengzhou is married to me. Actually, you don't have to do that. After all, getting married is only a matter between the two of us. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Just do it normally. She knew that he had her in his heart and that he loved her deeply. That was enough. As for the other things, they were just for outsiders to see. To her, it didn't matter whether they existed or not. On the other side, Guan Shilin, who had heard that Feng Xiao had arrived, rushed back from the medicine shop. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he saw Fengzhou and Xianyuanmo standing under a tree in the front yard. Seeing this, he didn't disturb them. Instead, he walked down another path, planning to ask Leng Hua first. However, not long after he walked down the other path, he met the siblings Leng Shuang and Leng Hua. Leng Hua, I heard that my foster father is here. Is it true? Chapter 1639. Hearing this, he nodded and smiled. It's good that you're here. This time, foster mother and Xiao Jiu can rest assured. He thought for a moment, then said, how about this? Let's not eat at home tonight. I'll book a restaurant outside and have a good meal outside. I'll go book it. Leng Hua said, then said to Guan Shilin, you just came back, so rest at home. Later, you can meet with the patriarch. Here, he changed the title from monarch to patriarch. After all, this was more appropriate. That's fine. Guan Shilin agreed and let him go first, then said to Leng Hua, Xiao Jiu and the others are in front. Let's go tell them. Thus, he walked towards where Fengzhou and the others were. As the sky gradually darkened, Feng Xiao walked out of the courtyard with Shengguan Wanrong and met up with Fengzhou and the others in the front hall. After meeting and chatting with everyone for a few days, they sat in a carriage and went out to the restaurant. The restaurant Leng Hua booked was one of Yan Dian's businesses. In order to avoid being disturbed, they booked the entire second floor. They didn't eat in a side room, but sat on the second floor facing the window, where they could see the lively night scene on the street. As the dishes were served, they drank and ate while chatting. They asked about the situation at home as well as the Phoenix Dynasty's current situation. Feng Xiao answered them one by one, telling them that everything was fine at home and that they didn't need to worry. Uncle Xiao, I'd like to invite you and Aunt Rome to the palace to meet with my imperial father to discuss the marriage. What do you think? Xianyuanmo saw that the atmosphere was good, so he directly asked this question. He felt that now that Fengzhou's parents had been reunited, the next step should be to arrange their marriage. After all, the two of them had known each other for many years. Although they hadn't been engaged for long, the two of them liked each other very much. Since they were prepared to never let go of each other's hands, then getting married early would give them more time to be together. This is a must. You've been to our place and met our elders, but we haven't been able to visit your father. Since we're here, we naturally have to meet your father and discuss the marriage between you and Xiao Jiu. At this point, Feng Xiao's voice paused, then he looked at Xianyuanmo and asked, your imperial father doesn't object to your Xiao Jiu's marriage, right? After all, the status of the Xianyuan dynasty was extraordinary and far from what their tiny Phoenix dynasty could compare to. If he looked down on them, it was also pardonable. Uncle Xiao, you can rest assured. My imperial father has already met Fengzhou and is very satisfied with her. He won't stop this marriage, Xianyuanmo said, glancing at Fengzhou beside him. Even if his imperial father would stop it, he would still marry Fengzhou. He hoped that they would meet his imperial father, not because of anything else, but because he valued Fengzhou. He hoped that their marriage would be blessed by the elders of both sides, and that she would be given all the etiquette that ordinary people would have when they got married. That's good. Feng Xiao nodded and said, if you've already taken care of the matters here, then we can set off to visit your imperial father in 2 days. Okay, I'll take care of it, Xianyuanmo said with a smile, then he saw Fengzhou fill the wine cup in front of him. Chapter 1640. To Uncle Xiao and Aunt Rong, Xianyuanmo said. After Fingzhou stood up, he also stood up. To adoptive father and adoptive mother. Guan Shilin laughed loudly and stood up with a glass of wine in his hand. To master and madam. Du Fan, Ling Hua, and the others also stood up with wine glasses in their hands. Even Hui Lang and Ying Yi raised their wine glasses and looked at the two of them. Thank you, everyone, for this journey. As Feng Xiao said this, he and Sheng Wanwanrong looked at each other. The two of them raised their wine glasses and gestured to everyone. After saying, please, they drank the wine in one gulp. Sit down. Today, everyone can eat and drink to your heart's content. Don't be restrained. He said this with a smile and let everyone sit down so they could eat and drink freely. Father, mother, try this. Fengzhou put some food in their bowls in front of them, and this, father, you probably didn't eat much good food on the way here, right? Come, eat more. Looking at the bowl full of meat dishes, Feng Xiao laughed loudly. Good, father will eat more. Don't worry. As he spoke, he put some light food in Sheng Wanwanrong's bowl. Here, these are lighter. Try it. Seeing this, Fengzhou couldn't help but smile happily. She saw the joy between her parents' eyebrows, saw the joy that came from the bottom of their hearts, and saw the deep affection between their eyebrows that couldn't be hidden. Although the two of them had also experienced a lot of hardships, they were finally together again. In this way, even if they had suffered a lot before, it was all worth it. Can you fill your stomach just by looking? Xianyuanmo's deep and magnetic voice drifted into her ears. She snapped back to her senses and saw that the bowl in front of her was already filled to the brim with her favorite dishes. What's more, the pair of chopsticks that were picking up food for her didn't stop and continued to stack up. She couldn't help but smile at the sight. She glanced sideways at him and happened to meet his deep, bottomless gaze. Seeing this, she also picked up her chopsticks and said with a smile, of course, looking at it can't fill my stomach, but eating it can. As she spoke, she picked up a piece and ate. Seeing that everyone was looking at them, she smiled and said, don't just look, eat. So, everyone laughed and chatted as they ate. The atmosphere suddenly became lively and relaxed. Some of the powers in the city were also paying close attention to the fact that they had booked the entire second floor of a famous restaurant in the city. After all, the name of the ghost doctor had gradually spread here, and the various powers in the city had naturally taken notice of the person called Fingzhou. What surprised them even more was that after investigation, they found out that the red-clothed youth who had turned the Danyang sect into a mess, Fingzhou, was the owner of this medicine shop in the city, the ghost doctor. Moreover, their people also found out that this Fingzhou was a woman. It could be said that all the powers were paying attention to their movements in the city. However, they still couldn't find out the background of the people around Fingzhou. It wasn't just them. In fact, all the powerful powers in the various cities of the 8 great empires had already taken notice of this ghost doctor. However, they heard that the ghost doctor had a close relationship with the people of the black market, so their people didn't dare to act rashly. Otherwise, such a pill master and pharmacist would definitely be fought over. Chapter 1641. On the street, Duan Mubai looked at the town and could not help but sigh. How bold was this Fingzhou? He had thought that he would run far away after rescuing Wanrong. Who knew that he would hide in a town not far from the Danyang sect? If Qin Dao and the others had not informed him, he would never have thought that they would be here. Because the Danyang sect had suffered heavy losses recently, everyone in the sect was in a state of panic. Even his family had some matters to attend to. However, when he saw that his father's body had recovered and his life was no longer in danger, he felt relieved. Let his elder brother handle the family matters. What was the family going to face? What had they lost? What were the potential dangers? These were not things that he could care about. After all, he was not the master of the family. If he interfered again, he was afraid that his elder brother would not be pleased. He just did not know where his little niece was now. When he thought of his little niece who had been forced to run away from home, he could not help but shake his head and sigh. He really did not agree with his elder brother's way of doing things. He only hoped that nothing had happened to his little niece outside. Otherwise, he was afraid that, looking at the lively passers-by on the street, he went to the address that Chen Dao and the others had given him. He planned to see Wanrong before returning to the sect. However, when he arrived at the courtyard and knocked on the door, no one came to open it for a long time. He could not help but be startled and thought to himself, could it be that she had left? Seeing that there was no one in the courtyard, he went to the medicine shop. It was said that the owner of this medicine shop was the ghost doctor, and the ghost doctor was Fingzhou. Moreover, in a short period of time, many top-grade pills had flowed out from this small medicine shop. The ghost doctor's name had also spread along with the circulation of the pills. It could be said that all the major forces in the 8 great empires had taken notice of this place. Naturally, they had also investigated this person called the ghost doctor and knew that the ghost doctor had a close relationship with the black market. This was probably the reason why no one dared to openly snatch her away. Otherwise, for those large forces, if such an alchemy prodigy appeared and they failed to recruit him, they would kill him. If they couldn't get him, they naturally couldn't let other forces get him. Otherwise, it would be extremely easy to become a threat to them. But it was also a good thing that this ghost doctor was smart enough. Other than that huge black market, she did not have any relations with other clans or powers. No matter who it was, they could buy pills or medicines from her, but the prerequisite was that they had the ghost doctor's pill or medicine tablet in hand. Otherwise, no matter how much money they had, they would not be able to buy what they wanted. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shake his head and laugh inwardly. Sure enough, this was a strange person who set some strange rules. When Duan Mubai arrived at the medicine shop, he casually looked around and saw that this inconspicuous medicine shop was very simple both inside and outside. In fact, it was even more simple than an ordinary medicine shop. Such a place was actually a place of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. "Shopkeeper, where is the person in charge?" he asked a middle-aged man in his 40s who was picking herbs in the pharmacy. Other than the shopkeeper, there was only a waiter here to greet the customers. There was no sign of the Leng Hua or Du Fan that Chen Dao and the others had mentioned. Chapter 1642. Duan Mubai glanced at him, paused, and said, "An old friend." Hearing that, the shopkeeper's expression changed slightly, and he chuckled. "Our manager has gone out and said that he won't be back tonight. Why don't you come back tomorrow?" Hearing that, Duan Mubai knew that Fingzhou and the others had not left, so he nodded. "All right then. I'll come back tomorrow." Thus, he turned to leave without stopping. However, at this moment, the shopkeeper asked again. "Please wait for a moment." The shopkeeper followed him out and asked Duan Mubai, "May I know your name? Tomorrow, when our manager comes, I can report to him on behalf of you." "My surname is Duan." He left after saying that. The next morning, when Du Fan was about to return to the medicine shop to take a look, he saw a man in white standing outside when he opened the door. After seeing that he was wearing the familiar robes of the Danyang sect, Du Fan's gaze swept down and landed on his waist token. "You are Duan Mubai." He reported his name and looked at the person in front of him. "I'm Shengwan Wanrong's eldest senior brother. Fengzhou should be here too, right?" Hearing that, Du Fan nodded and stepped aside to let him in. please come in. He closed the door again and said, Chen Dao and Luo Hing mentioned you before, so I know you too. Oh right, I'm Du Fan. I know. Duan Mubai replied, his gaze landing on the folding fan in his hand. Du Fan followed his gaze and glanced at the folding fan in his hand. He smiled and led him into the hall as he said, my master hasn't woken up yet. As for madam, she drank a few cups of wine last night and probably won't wake up so early today. Why don't we do this? You sit in the hall for a while, I'll send someone to report and see if my master has woken up. Let them sleep. I can wait for them to wake up. Duan Mubai said as he walked into the hall and sat down. I just came to take a look after receiving news from Chen Dao and the others. It's nothing urgent. Du Fan poured him a cup of tea and said, then you can sit here first. Feel free to walk around the mansion. I still have to take a look at the store, so I'll take my leave first. Yes, Duan Mubai replied and took a sip of tea. Du Fan went outside and found Leng Hua. He told Leng Hua to greet the guests in the hall and then left. After Leng Hua found out that the person who came was Madam's eldest senior brother, he went to the kitchen to get some snacks and brewed a pot of tea to send to the hall. However, when he arrived at the hall, he didn't see anyone. Didn't you say to sit in the hall? He was a little surprised and put down the tray in his hand. Seeing that the teacups on the table were still warm, he knew that they hadn't gone far, so he went out to take a look. On the other side, after Duan Mubai walked out of the courtyard, he walked around and inadvertently walked to a training ground. He faintly heard the sound of fighting, so he walked towards the sound. He came to a stop not far from the training field and watched the two figures sparring in the field. Although it was just sparring, it was not difficult to see that the two of them were outstanding. Because their figures changed so quickly, he could not see their faces clearly. However, from the aura and strength of their bodies, he could tell that the two of them were extremely outstanding. Chapter 1643. He watched them quietly. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, the two of them stopped. At this moment, he could clearly see that both of them were wearing black robes. Their figures were similar, but the one in black robes was of a darker color, which made him appear more mature. When his gaze landed on the two of them, he noticed that their bone ages were different. One was a man in his 20s, while the other looked like he was in his 20s or 30s. However, his bone age was already in his 40s. Furthermore, his aura seemed to be more stable than the other man's. The one in the lighter robes is my master's sworn brother. His name is Guan Shilin Leng Hua, who had appeared behind Duan Mubai at some point in time, said gently. Duan Mubai turned his head slightly to look at the young man standing beside him. This young man looked to be about the same age as his disciples. However, he had a gentle aura and did not seem like an ordinary guard or servant. You must be Leng Hua. It was not a question, but a confirmation. There were not many unrelated people here. Chen Dao and the others had said that other than Du Fan, there was only Leng Hua and a woman called Leng Shuang. Leng Hua smiled gently, that's right. The people around Fengzhou are indeed not to be trifled with, Duan Mubai praised. I'm just my master's housekeeper. I'm the most ordinary and inconspicuous person here, Leng Hua said modestly. Duan Mubai smiled and asked, the one in the lighter robes is Fengzhou's sworn brother. Then, what about that one? His gaze landed on Feng Xiao. He could sense an iron-blooded and intimidating aura from this person. Furthermore, his aura was sharp and threatening. He was definitely not to be trifled with. Leng Hua followed his gaze and his gaze landed on Feng Xiao. He smiled and said gently, the one in the darker robes is our master, Feng Xiao. He's also my master's father and madam's husband. Hearing this, Duan Mubai's eyes flickered. His heart skipped a beat. He was a little stunned, Fengzhou's father. Wanrong's husband. At this moment, he felt a little disappointed, as if he had lost something. His heart sank. So this man was the one she loved. He was the man she had been worried about. So, they had been reunited. Thinking of this, his gaze involuntarily landed on Feng Xiao. Even if he didn't want to admit it, he had to admit that this Feng Xiao was really outstanding. Whether it was his appearance, his aura, or his steady and iron-blooded aura, he was a dragon among men. Furthermore, he was a completely different type from him. At first glance, this Feng Xiao gave people the impression that he was an iron-blooded tough man. He was an expert with a sharp and intimidating aura. On the other hand, he was only an alchemist. Even though alchemists were respectable existences, he couldn't compare to him in terms of aura, and combat strength. Just as he was staring blankly, he suddenly saw a simple and elegant figure jump into his field of vision. On a small path on the other side of the martial arts field, Shengwan Wanrong slowly walked over with a bamboo basket in her hand. The two people in the field stopped when they saw her. Chapter 1644. Looking at the smile and gentleness on her face, he had an indescribable feeling in his heart. In the end, her gentleness did not belong to him. These days, it was only his own wishful thinking. However, to be able to see that she was happy, this comforted him a little. After calming himself down, he suppressed the feelings he had for her in the bottom of his heart before he walked forward. When Lang Hua saw this, he revealed a smile and followed them to the training field. It wasn't until they were closer that he opened his mouth to speak. "Master, Madam, Peak Master Duan is here." As soon as Lang Hua's voice was heard, Shengwan Wanrong, who was talking to Feng Xiao, was slightly stunned. She looked up and saw that it was indeed her eldest senior brother. Thus, she walked forward with Feng Xiao. "Eldest senior brother, why are you here?" When Feng Xiao heard Wanrong say that it was her eldest senior brother, he sized up the person without batting an eyelid. His daughter had told him that several people in the Danyang sect were interested in Wanrong. "I heard from Chen Dao and the others that you were here, so I wanted to come and see how you are doing," Duan Mu said with a gentle smile. Duan Mubai said with a gentle smile. His gaze moved away from Shengwan Wanrong and landed on Feng Xiao. "I really didn't expect to see the Feng Master here. I'm really surprised." "That's right. Before he came here, he didn't know that he would meet Wanrong's husband here, let alone such an outstanding man. However, seeing him so outstanding made him feel better." Hearing this, Feng Xiao laughed loudly. "I also didn't expect to see the eldest senior brother that my madam mentioned here. I didn't notice you earlier. If there's anything I didn't greet you well, please don't take offense, Brother Duan." "I won't." As Duan Mubai spoke, he looked at Shengwan Wanrong. "Actually, I didn't come here for anything important. I just stopped by to see little junior sister." "Little junior sister, how are you?" Shengwan Wanrong revealed a gentle smile and said softly, "Don't worry, eldest senior brother. Xiaojiu's medical skills are very good. I'm fine now." "That's good." He nodded. Seeing her like this, he knew that she was fine. "Brother Duan, let's go to the front hall and have a chat. If we let Brother Duan stand like us, it would be impolite of us." Feng Xiao gestured for Duan Ling Tian to leave. Seeing this, Duan Mubai glanced at the two of them and followed him to the front hall. Guan Shilin held on to Lang Hua and waited for them to walk away before asking, "Did Duan Mubai tell Xiaojiu that he's here?" "Not yet. Master shouldn't have woken up yet," Lang Hua said. "I see. Go ahead and greet them. I'll go to the backyard to take a look." As he spoke, he motioned for Lang Hua to quickly leave while he himself headed towards the rear courtyard. When he arrived at Fingzhou's courtyard, he saw Ling Shuang standing guard outside the door and beckoned her to come over. "Young master, what's the matter?" Ling Shuang asked. "Is your master awake yet?" "Not yet." "Is Xianyuan Mo's inside?" Duan Bai asked again. Hearing this, Ling Shuang paused for a moment before saying, "No, Yama Lord is sleeping in his room." Chapter 1645. That Duan Bai is here. I was just about to ask Xiao Jiu if she wanted to take a look. But since she hasn't woken up yet, then forget it. As he spoke, he waved his hand and turned to leave, preparing to go to the kitchen to find something to eat. Duan Bai. Ling Shuang was slightly surprised. Wasn't that the current 3-yang peak master of Danyang sect? According to Chen Dao and the others, after 3-Yangzi died, Duan Bai was elected as the 3-yang peak master. He probably came here to see Mistress. Ling Shuang didn't wake Fingzhou up, and Fingzhou only woke up in the afternoon. When she opened the door and walked out, she saw Xianyuan Mo's and Guan Shilin playing chess in the courtyard. "I'm not playing anymore. I won't lose to you if I play chess with you." Guan Shilin sighed. He felt that he was looking for trouble. He was clearly not his opponent, yet he still played chess with him. He hadn't won a single game since this morning. Xianyuan Mo's curled his lips and waved his hand nonchalantly, indicating for Lang Shuang to put away the chessboard. He then looked at Fingzhou, who walked out. "You're awake. Are you hungry?" "I was awoken by hunger." When she said this, Fingzhou couldn't help but laugh. "I guessed that the ghost doctor would be awake soon. Look, I've brought the food over." Hui Lang came in from outside with a tray in his hands and placed the food on the table. "Everyone else is having lunch, but the ghost doctor is having breakfast. Master said that since the ghost doctor has just woken up, she probably won't be able to eat, so he got someone to make some porridge." He grinned and retreated to the side. "Thank you." She blinked at him, then heard Xianyuan Mo's voice. "This is what he should do. What's there to thank me for?" Hearing this, Hui Lang hurriedly nodded and replied, "That's right, that's right. These are all things that I should do. Ghost Doctor, you are my mistress. Serving mistress is also our duty." Xianyuan Mo's expression softened a little when he heard the word mistress. He seemed to be very satisfied with this form of address. He poured a bowl of porridge for Fingzhou and placed it in front of her. "Eat it while it's hot." When Fingzhou was about to eat, he saw Guan Shilin sitting next to him and smiling at them, so he asked, "Brother, aren't you going to eat?" "I've used up a lot of energy. I need to eat lunch. This porridge can't fill my stomach." "You can eat it. I'll go eat later." He smiled and said, "Oh right, there's something else I want to tell you. Duan Bai came, but he left an hour ago. It was foster father and foster mother who received him." "Oh. What is he doing here?" she asked curiously as she ate. "What else could it be? He's definitely here to see foster mother." He laughed loudly and said, "However, foster father accompanied him the entire time. I asked Lang Hua, and he said that they chatted for a while." After that, Duan Bai bid farewell and returned to the Danyang sect. Hearing this, Fingzhou smiled. Thinking about it, Duan Bai probably wanted to come and see her mother, but unexpectedly bumped into her father. That was why he didn't stay for long and left. That's good as well. Letting him meet her father would cut off his thoughts, so that he wouldn't always be thinking about her mother. "Let's settle everything here today. We'll set off for the Xianyuan dynasty tomorrow," Xianyuan Mo said from the side as he helped Fingzhou get some side dishes. Fingzhou nodded. There's nothing else here. I'll let Lang Hua and Du Fan take care of the medicine shop, then we can leave. Chapter 1646. While this side was preparing, far away in the Phoenix dynasty, old Master Feng was playing with his youngest son in the courtyard. Little Yi, go and pick up that ball. After Feng Sanyuan threw the little ball in his hand out, he had his son pick it up. He looked like he was teasing a dog, causing the Phoenix guards who were hiding in the shadows to be unable to hold back their laughter. This was definitely his biological father. Only a biological father would play with his son like he was teasing a dog. Especially that little Yi, He didn't understand that his father was making fun of him. He even opened his mouth and drooled as he crawled over to pick up the ball. Then, he ran back to hand the ball over to his father. Father, ball. The little guy smiled with his peach blossom eyes. His pure and innocent white face was delicate and cute. The 3-year-old child had a bit of baby fat. His chubby appearance was very comical, causing people to grin when they saw it. Little Yi, is so obedient. Feng Sanyuan laughed and picked him up to sit on his lap. He pinched his chubby little face and at the same time, picked up a piece of pastry and brought it to his mouth. Here, I'll give you a piece of osmanthus cake. However, the little guy didn't eat it. Instead, he took the osmanthus cake and slipped down from his father's lap. He ran over to a 7 or 8-year-old boy. Little Yang, eat. The little guy stood on his tiptoes and brought the pastry to Zhao Yang's mouth. Little Yang, osmanthus cake, eat. Seeing this scene, Feng Sanyuan nodded with gratification. It was rare for a little child to know how to share. This was a good thing. Zhao Yang stood there and looked at little Feng Yi, who didn't even reach his waist. His tender little face had a steadiness that was different from his peers. This subordinate won't eat. Master, eat. He, who was almost 8 years old, was a lot more sensible. Back then, he was brought back by Fengzhou and taught to read, practice, and cultivate. He had always been working hard to learn. The princess of the Phoenix dynasty, Fengzhou, was someone he had always respected. She was the one who saved him, had the monarch and the others nurture him, and had arranged for him to be by his master's side, allowing him to grow together with his master. Although he was Feng Ye's personal bodyguard, both the monarch and the emperor emeritus treated him like family. He had everything that the young master had. In order not to disappoint them and the princess, he had been working hard on his cultivation. He had promised the princess, the monarch, and the retired emperor that he would protect little Master Feng Yi at all times. Moreover, his father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother were all saved because of Princess Fengzhou. Because of her, they were able to cultivate as ghosts and become ghost cultivators who could walk around in the daytime. He would always remember this great kindness in his heart. Little Yang, eat, eat. The little guy didn't give up. He stretched out his little hands and stood on tiptoe. His whole body hung on his body, just to let him eat a piece of osmanthus cake. Seeing this, Feng Sanyuan smiled. Little Yang, just eat. It's not like you don't know how stubborn little Yi, is. Since he gave it to you, you must eat it. Hearing this, Zhao Yang thought for a moment, then took the piece of pastry and ate it. Seeing this, the little guy finally smiled. He ran back to his father and opened his little mouth. Father, osmanthus cake. Chapter 1647. Although Yi, is still young, you can't spoil him like this. Unknowingly, Sushi walked over from not far away. Seeing Feng Sanyuan spoiling his son like this, only playing with him all day and giving him food to eat, she felt it wasn't good. Mother. When little Feng Yi saw her, he slipped down from his father's thigh and flew towards his mother, directly throwing himself at her. Sushi bent down to catch him and calmly said, did you forget what mother told you? I didn't forget, remembers. Mother told to memorize the cultivation method, memorized it. The little guy's voice was soft and his small appearance was lovable, causing Sushi's expression to soften. Such a small person and so lovable, she really couldn't harden her heart to punish him. Don't be too strict on the child, he is quite good like this. Feng Sanyuan said. After she came forward, he held her hand and had her sit at the side. The child is still so young, there is plenty of time to cultivate. What's more, is so smart and learns things quickly, there is no need to rush. You can't spoil him like this. Sushi shook her head and said to the son in her arms, Go and learn martial arts with Yang Yang. Mother, doesn't want to go, wants to play with mother and father. The little guy stayed in her arms and refused to leave. Be good, wait for mother to make your favorite dumplings tonight. She said softly and beckoned for Zhao Yang to come over. Yang, take to the martial arts field. You must make him practice a set of martial arts, don't let him be lazy. Yes. Zhao Yang responded and said to Feng Yi, Master, let's go. Then little Yang has to carry me. He threw a tantrum and didn't want to go to the martial arts field. Okay. Zhao Yang squatted down and gestured for him to come up. Seeing this, little Feng Ye's face revealed a happy smile. He directly threw himself on his back and wrapped his arms around his neck. Ride a big horse, ride a big horse. Little Yang, run. Seeing the two children walk away, Sushi looked at Feng Sanyuan. Although the children are young, they learn things the fastest and the best at this age. You can't let him do as he pleases just because you dote on him. That isn't loving him, but harming him. Tell me, if one day we are not by his side, and he is like an ordinary child, or even worse than an ordinary child, how can you be at ease? Even if he grew up in the royal family, by our side, we must teach him to be independent and learn to take care of himself. He's still so young. No matter what, he should have started learning at the age of 5. He's too young now. Feng Sanyuan said. He felt that it was not good to let the child learn this and that at such a young age. At such a young age, he should let him play and play happily. When it came to teaching children, the two of them had different ideas. They would quarrel from time to time because of this. Fortunately, they didn't quarrel too much. Occasionally, quarreling could add some fun to their lives. Sushi disagreed, he's not young anymore. It's best for him to learn things at the age of 3. He'll be able to remember the mantra even if I ask him to. Chapter 1648. No matter where they are, as long as they are safe. As Sushi spoke, she seemed to have thought of something. She smiled and said, on the other hand, we have to prepare for their wedding. Whether it's Xiaozhou or Xiaozhou's mother, Wanrong, I feel that this wedding must be held in a grand manner. That's for sure. Feng Sanyuan nodded and smiled. On the other side, little Feng Yi and Zhao Yang arrived at the martial arts field. They saw the Phoenix guards sparring inside. Little Feng Yi rolled his eyes. He held his stomach and shouted, Little Yang, my stomach hurts. Zhao Yang was startled. He said, then I'll take you to see the imperial doctor. No need. I'll be fine after you send me back to sleep. The little guy hurriedly said. Hearing this, Zhao Yang was speechless. He said to little Feng Yi who was lying on his back, Master, do you want to memorize the Heart Sutra or do you want to lift it? I want to sleep, I want to eat delicious food, I want to play, I want to. The little fellow lay on his back and said in a soft voice. His delicate little face scrunched up and his little mouth pouted. No, it's better. Memorizing the Heart Sutra or practicing boxing. You can only choose one. But I don't know what memorizing the Heart Sutra means. I memorized it, but I don't understand it. The little guy slid down from Zhao Yang's back. He pursed his little mouth and looked at him with tears in his eyes. Little Yang, that's not fun. Seeing this, Zhao Yang thought for a moment. He said, then I'll take you somewhere else. As he spoke, he took his hand and led him to another place. What are we going to do? Where are we going to play? Little Feng Yi followed beside him. He walked with his short legs and asked from time to time. You'll know when we get there. Zhao Yang said. He took him to a side hall where there were no people. After arriving at the side hall where there was no one, Zhao Yang stopped and looked around. He said to Feng Yi, Master, my parents and my grandparents are here. Have you seen them? Hearing this, little Feng Yi blinked his innocent eyes and looked around. No, there's no one here. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a figure gradually appeared. It was a woman in simple and elegant clothes, but her face was slightly pale. Yang, why did you bring little Feng Yi here today? Why did you suddenly appear? Little Feng Yi curiously looked at the approaching woman. Who are you? I've never seen you before. She is my mother. My mother works for the princess. They are here to see me. Zhao Yang said. He raised his head and looked at his mother. Mother, has your cultivation become more powerful? Since they started cultivating, in addition to being able to appear under the sun during the day, their strength had improved a lot. Moreover, they could control their own breath very well. They didn't have to worry about the yin qi leaking out and affecting their bodies. Princess. The little guy tilted his little head and asked curiously, is she the niece who is older than me but calls me uncle? Hearing this, another figure came out from the dark. It was Zhao Yang's father. He nodded with a smile and said, yes, it's her. Her name is Fengzhou. She is a very powerful person. Chapter 1649. You will see her in the future, and she should be back soon. Zhao Yang's father smiled and looked at his son. Shouldn't you be cultivating now? Why are you here? He didn't want to practice, so I brought him here. Zhao Yang said to his father, Father, let's practice in this yard. You can also give us pointers. All right. Zhao Yang's father nodded and stepped back a little to let them practice what they had learned during this period of time while he gave them pointers. Seeing the two children gesticulating there, the couple couldn't help but look at each other and smile. They never thought that they could still watch their son grow up like this. This kind of happiness didn't come easily, and they cherished it. They were even more grateful to the person who gave them this kind of happiness, their master. A few days later, when the entire imperial city was shrouded in the night and seemed quiet and peaceful, a huge black spaceship came to the sky above the imperial city of the Phoenix dynasty as if there was no one there. In the dark night, the atmosphere seemed so solemn. A strong and fierce murderous intent spread in the air. The pressure and murderous intent that came from the strong almost made the hearts of the ancestors of the various clans in the city tremble in an instant, and they felt an unprecedented sense of crisis. Almost in an instant, the ancestors of the various clans all rushed out of the courtyard at the same time. They raised their chi and wanted to jump into the sky to see what was going on. However, when they raised their chi, they felt a powerful aura spread over the entire imperial city. The pressure and aura pressed down on them, making it difficult for them to even breathe. Hiss! How could this be? They sucked in a breath of cold air, and they were shocked. Especially when they stood on the roof and saw the black warship that flew over the imperial city and stopped directly above the imperial palace, their hearts sank. What was that? Where did that huge black spaceship come from? What did they want to do? The ancestors were extremely uneasy, and they quickly gathered together to discuss. Could it be an enemy? The pressure that shrouded the imperial city is too strong. It's not something we can compare to. I'm afraid that if it's an enemy, it will only be a strong enemy, and it's coming for the Feng family. Could it be an enemy that Fengjiu made outside? Very likely. Look! An ancestor exclaimed and pointed to the top of the palace. The entire palace was enveloped by a powerful qi cover, as if everyone was trapped inside. The halo on the qi cover emitted a beautiful white light in the night, releasing a powerful qi, which isolated the palace from the outside world. Moreover, at this moment, cultivators jumped down from the huge black ship. Even though they were far away, they could feel the powerful pressure and fierce killing intent from those people. They couldn't help but tremble and suck in a breath of cold air. Hiss. Are they trying to exterminate the Feng family? Are they trying to destroy the entire Phoenix dynasty? Among the ancestors, the Gung family's ancestor took a deep breath and thought about Grandfather Feng's family in the palace. He couldn't help but rush forward. Chapter 1650. What is Old Man Gung trying to do? Does he not want to live? The others exclaimed, but they didn't dare to follow him to the palace. Although they had some friendship with the Feng family, the situation was not optimistic. If they suddenly helped, they feared that it would bring disaster to their family. It was not that they were cold-blooded and heartless, but their strength was limited. They clearly knew that they were no match for those people, so how could they casually attack? Are we just going to watch like this? An ancestor whispered with a complicated expression. What else can we do? Those people are clearly not people we can deal with. Another person helplessly said, if we could help, it would be one thing, but these people are too powerful, and the strength of those cultivators is not ordinary. I fear that even if we use all of our family's strength, we won't be able to defeat them. After all, our strength is limited. Look over there. That is the Feng Manor's Feng guards. One of them pointed in another direction. The Feng guards from the Feng Manor were quickly rushing toward the palace. It's useless. From the barrier, it can be seen that these people are not ordinary. The Feng guards can't go in. Even if they go in, they will only make useless sacrifices. An ancestor sighed and looked at the palace trapped by the barrier. He knew that the Feng family would not be able to escape this calamity. Another ancestor said, however, aside from Fengjiu, Feng Xiao seems to have left a while ago. Right now, there should only be Old Man Feng, his wife, and their youngest son, Feng Yi, in the palace. Hearing this, the others all became silent. Yes, although there were only the three of them, they might not be able to survive. In addition, the Feng guards in the palace and the Feng Manor outside the palace, they might. On the other side, Old Man Gung rushed to the palace gate. When he wanted to break the barrier and enter, he was bounced back. Just as he was burning with anxiety, he saw Feng Sanyuan being besieged by several cultivators in the air above the palace. Seeing that Feng Sanyuan was only wearing underclothes and his body was covered in blood, Old Man Gung gradually calmed down. Even if he went in, he might not be able to save Old Man Feng. Those people were looking at the Feng family. Old Man Feng and his wife might not be well, but their child, Feng Yi, had to be saved. But how was he going to get in? He didn't even know if there was a secret passage in the palace. How was he going to save Old Man Feng's youngest son? Screams and the clanging sounds of swords clashing rang in his ears. The palace was clearly right in front of him, but due to the isolation of the barrier, no one was able to enter. He could only hear the sounds of fighting coming from inside. Those mournful screams and the clanging sounds of swords clashing made his heart clench. Phoenix guards. The Feng Manor's Feng guards. They must know. At the same time, when the Phoenix guards arrived at the entrance of the palace and found that the barrier could not be broken, they quickly turned back. The 8 people in the lead looked at the battle inside the barrier and heard the screams, and felt their hearts tremble. Those people's gazes were from the Feng family. Looking at the situation, they wanted to exterminate everyone in the Feng family. Who was it? Who was so bold? The forces of the surrounding countries? Impossible. Those people were on good terms with the Phoenix Majestic Empire. They definitely wouldn't take advantage of this opportunity to make a move. Could it be that they were from the 8 great empires? Could it be that Master had made enemies outside? Chapter 1651. Inside the palace, the thick stench of blood filled the entire palace. The palace maids screamed in panic, the clanging of swords and sabers, and the mournful cries of death. The palace that was usually filled with joy had turned into a living hell. Corpses were lying on the ground. Some of their limbs had been chopped off. Blood splattered on the ground, on the fence, on the flowers, and in the pavilion. What was visible was a heart-trembling bright red. Flames were burning, and thick smoke rose. It was a complete mess. Who are you people? What grudge do you have with my Feng family? In mid-air, Feng Sanyuan, who was only wearing a white inner robe, hurriedly got up. His body was covered in wounds, and blood had dyed his white inner robe red. Even though he was covered in wounds, he still held a long sword in his hand and confronted those people. He was surrounded by more than 10 immortal cultivators. Every one of them was at the peak of the nascent soul realm or the fairy realm. Putting aside the strength of the peak of the nascent soul realm, even a single fairy realm expert would have enough power to destroy the Phoenix dynasty, which was not very big. If a fairy realm powerhouse stomped his foot, the entire imperial city would be shaken. However, there was not just one person with such terrifying strength. There were nearly 10 of them. Nearly 10 fairy realm powerhouses, and 7 or 8 peak nascent soul realm powerhouses. They had actually come to deal with this small Phoenix dynasty. It was doubtful. Even Feng Zhou's enemy outside the tree probably didn't have such terrifying strength. Furthermore, based on his understanding of his granddaughter, she would definitely not allow any threatening forces to exist. She would definitely not give them the chance to seek revenge. Even if she spared some people's lives, it would definitely not be people like these people, who possessed such terrifying strength. Dead people don't need to know too much. A gloomy voice came from the flying ship. The pressure contained in that voice was so strong that it made people's hearts tremble. Feng Sanyuan only felt that the voice was like a hammer that smashed into his heart. It shook his mind, and his qi and blood went against the flow. He felt a salty taste in his throat, and a mouthful of blood flowed out. So strong. He widened his eyes in shock. At the same time, he was also worried. These people clearly wanted to destroy his Feng family and his Phoenix dynasty. Under the pursuit of so many powerhouses, could his wife and children escape alive? Could they survive? There was also his eldest son and granddaughter, who were far away in the 8 great empires. If they returned, would they be ambushed by these people? If they returned and saw that they had all been killed, would they fall into endless madness? Thoughts flashed through his mind one after another, causing his determination to fight to the death to waver a little. He had to escape. Even if he could not escape, he must protect his wife and children. He had to let them live. Even if the chances were so slim, he had to do his best to protect his wife and child. On the other side, Sushi took little Feng Yi and Zhao Yang to escape to the secret passage under the escort of the shadow guards. In order to avoid the pursuit, the shadow guards and phoenix guards protecting them died one by one. Even Sushi's arm was cut by a sword in order to protect the child. The wound was so deep that the bone was visible. Chapter 1652. He kept staring at the wound that his mother had used a piece of cloth torn from her dress to bandage it. The fresh blood had seeped out again and dyed the bandage red. As he watched, his eyes turned red and he bit his lips tightly. His delicate little face had turned pale because of tonight's sudden change. His pure and clear eyes were filled with worry and fear. Sushi's face was pale. Her heart was trembling. She was afraid. She was afraid that her husband would die. She was afraid that her child would die. No one would be able to save them. They were in a hopeless situation with nowhere to run. Those people wanted to kill them. They couldn't escape. When they arrived at the secret passage in the palace, Sushi brought the two inside. It was an underground secret room in the pond. There was a formation and barrier here. No matter how strong someone was, they wouldn't be able to find them with their divine sense. This was originally a safe place in case something happened. She didn't expect, so she looked at Xiao Yang and asked, Yang, I'll leave ye, to you. Can you promise me to protect him? I will use my life to protect Master. Xiao Yang firmly said. He knew that the Feng family had encountered such a great calamity. He was afraid that the odds were against them. It was because of this that his father knew about him. They were going to save the retired emperor. Even if it was very likely that their souls would scatter and disappear from the world, they still had to help. They had reminded him to protect the little master well, and he remembered that. He definitely remembered that he had been cultivating. He would definitely protect little master. Yang is so obedient. Sushi's eyes turned red. Tears couldn't help but fall. Those people came suddenly and covered the entire palace, making it impossible for the people inside to escape. The palace guards, secret guards, and even the Phoenix guards went all out. However, those people were too strong. The people in the palace couldn't match them at all. Seeing the people she was familiar with being killed one by one, her heart ached unbearably. However, there was nothing she could do. She knew that even if they had to pay with their lives, even if they knew they couldn't save them, they would still block in front of them. They would block the danger for them and block the sharp blades for them. Mother, where are you going? Aren't you going to stay with Yi? Mother, Yi is scared. Yi is so scared. The little fellow finally couldn't help but cry out. His little hands tightly clutched his mother's clothes, and he buried his whole body in his mother's embrace as he cried. Yi be good. Yi must be obedient. Mother is not by your side, so you must listen to Yang and not throw a tantrum. She wept and comforted the little girl in her arms. Remember, you must find Fingzhou and your big brother. Even if your parents are gone, they will take good care of you for them. No, Yi only wants mother and father, only mother and father, Wowo. The little fellow cried in panic. He was afraid that his mother would be like his father, saying that she would go out and not come back. He was afraid that his father and mother would bleed. He was afraid that they would fall to the ground and die like the others. He didn't want to be alone. He didn't want to be left alone. Chapter 1653. She was worried that in the face of death, some people would betray them in order to save their lives. She was worried that if they went to find people they were familiar with in the city, those people would take advantage of the situation and hand them over when they saw that the Feng family was in trouble. Therefore, she told him to find Fingzhou and Feng Xiao. She could only trust the two of them. She couldn't be on guard against others because this was her child, her and Sun Yuan's child. She didn't dare to take the risk. You're not coming with us, Zhao Yang looked at her and asked. His little face was puzzled. Why didn't she leave with them? Wouldn't it be better if she was there? Su Shi shook her head. I can't go. There are only Sanyuan, me, and Yi in the palace. Those people are coming for us. They will definitely find us and kill us. If I leave with you, even if I kill Sanyuan, they won't let it go. They will definitely turn the palace upside down. At that time, it will be difficult for Yi to survive. She lovingly caressed her son's pale little face. The little boy had gone through such a big change tonight. Those corpses and blood must have frightened him, but he had been suppressing it, which made her heart ache. Those people are too strong. Only if I go out can I divert their attention. Only then can you have a better chance of survival. She suppressed the reluctance in her heart and handed the child to Zhao Yang. Yang, although you are only 7 or 8 years old, you are older than Yi. You two grew up together and are like brothers. Now, I have no other choice. I have no one else to entrust. I can only entrust Yi to you. Please protect him well. As long as he survives this period, those people will leave. When Fingzhou and the others return, everything will be fine. Hearing those words, Zhao Yang nodded as if he understood, and, I will take master and leave. We will definitely find Princess and the king. He bent down and carried the unconscious little Feng Yi on his back. He looked at her and wanted to say something. In the end, he didn't say anything. He carried little Feng Yi and walked down the secret passage. Seeing them leave, Su Shi retracted her gaze and bandaged the wound on her arm again. Then, she walked out and destroyed the mechanism to enter the tunnel so that no one could enter. Taking advantage of the darkness of the night, she stealthily moved from one side of the tunnel to the other. She tried her best to stay as far away from the tunnel as possible until she arrived at a fake mountain. When she saw Feng Sanyuan, who was covered in injuries, being chased by numerous immortal cultivators, her heart clenched. She could not help but cry out in alarm, especially when one of the immortal cultivators thrust his sword towards his back. Husband! She shouted in a trembling voice as she flew over. From a distance, she could see that the sword had been blocked somehow. She took a closer look and realized that it was Yang Yang's family, the ghost cultivators, who were protecting her. Let's go! Zhao Yang's grandfather shouted in a low voice. As he blocked the sword of the fairy realm expert, he asked his son and daughter-in-law to quickly protect Feng Sanyuan and leave. Feng Sanyuan gritted his teeth and could only cover his wound as he continued to flee. However, when he heard the words, husband, his heart shook. He looked towards the source of the voice and asked in a trembling voice, Su Shi? You? Why are you here? Shouldn't she have left? Shouldn't she have left with their child? Why was she still here? If she was here, then what about their child? Was the child all right? Chapter 1654. Feng Sanyuan cried out in alarm, his heart in his throat. He saw a cultivator behind Su Shi holding a sword and stabbing towards her. Seeing that the sword was filled with killing intent, Feng Sanyuan dashed out and pounced towards her. Sensing the murderous intent behind her, Su Shi turned her head and saw the fairy realm expert's long sword coming towards her. A powerful pressure enveloped her, and she wanted to dodge it. However, due to the opponent's powerful pressure and force, her whole body froze on the spot, unable to move. She could only look on helplessly as the long sword pierced towards her. Bang! She was suddenly pushed down and rolled on the ground, hitting some rocks. Before she could react, she was brought to the side, and a familiar voice sounded in her ears. Run! Feng Sanyuan pushed her away and urged her to leave quickly. Run! Run! Ha! None of you will be able to escape. The two fairy realm cultivators in front and behind closed in, staring at the two of them with bloodthirsty eyes. As for Zhao Yang's grandfather, who had blocked the sword for Feng Sanyuan, he had already been killed by the sharp sword. Now, only Zhao Yang's parents were left by Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi's side. As for the other Phoenix Guards and Shadow Guards who were originally protecting them, they had all died in the process of protecting them. None of them had survived. We can't escape. The barrier has trapped us here. Even without the barrier, we won't be able to escape from these people. Su Shi didn't leave. Instead, she stood beside Feng Sanyuan. Even if I die, I will die with you. The two fairy realm cultivators looked at them playfully. Not far away, there were still some people in the air. However, those people didn't come over. In their eyes, these people were too weak. They were so weak that they could crush them with a single finger. Asking so many of them to come and exterminate such a small imperial family was too much of a waste of talent. However, what surprised them was that the people here were all trying their best to protect their master. This loyalty made them look at them in a new light. Husband and wife were birds in the same forest, but when disaster struck, they flew away separately. Especially in the immortal cultivation world, there were very few couples who went through life and death together. Therefore, when they saw this couple, they were a little surprised. On the other side, after Old Man Gung found Ren Xiang and the other 8 Phoenix Guards, he followed them into the secret passage and sneaked into the palace through the secret passage. They couldn't enter the palace through the main door, and they couldn't fly through the sky. Fortunately, there was still a secret passage for them to sneak in. Where does this tunnel lead to? Can we really reach the palace? Old Master Gung asked the Phoenix Guard in front of him. Yes, we've been there before, Ren Xiang replied, his voice slightly heavy. I just don't know if the retired emperor and the others are still alive. Thinking that they might have been killed, his heart couldn't help but tremble. If retired emperor and the others died, how would they have the face-to-face master? But even if there was a fluke, the strength of those people was so strong that almost the entire imperial city shook when they appeared. With such strong strength, who here could resist? But whether they are still alive or not, we must rescue their children. Old Master Gung said with certainty, no matter what, they will definitely protect the child. Chapter 1655. When they rushed to the imperial palace from the passage, Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi, who had been forced into a corner, were standing in each other's arms. Under the pressure of the experts and their attacks, aside from internal injuries, they were also bleeding profusely. They were almost unable to hold on any longer. Run! Bang! Boom! With a loud shout, Zhao Yang's parents rushed towards the two fairy realm experts. In an instant, huge sparks erupted from their bodies. The two fairy realm experts, who were originally standing guard at the side, only frowned slightly. They raised their hands and sent out a stream of air to block them. The sparks exploded with a bang. Huge light and flames suddenly shot up. When the cultivators raised their sleeves to block the flames, Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi quickly left. Zhao Yang's parents turned into specks of light in the flames and disappeared into the air. Even when they died, they still tried to fight for a chance for Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi to live. They were ghost cultivators and had died long ago. Now that they could use their lives to exchange for a chance for their master's family to live, they felt that it was worth it. When the fairy realm experts raised their eyes to look again, the two figures had already disappeared. Seeing this, they sneered, "Two ants want to escape from under our noses. Is that even possible?" One of the fairy realm experts scanned the area with his divine sense and said to two of them. They went to the palace in front. "You two go and deal with them. We'll go back and report." "Yes." Two of them, who were at the early stage of the fairy realm, responded and flew forward, while the others turned around and left. It was just two people. They couldn't do anything, and they couldn't escape from the fairy realm experts. The order they received was to destroy the imperial palace and kill everyone inside. Now, all they could see were corpses. As long as they dealt with those two people, their mission should be considered complete. Su Shi supported the heavily injured Feng Sanyuan and rushed forward. She, who was already exhausted, forced herself to hold on. Along the way, blood seeped out from her wounds and dripped onto the ground, leaving a trail behind. "Husband, you must hold on. You must hold on." She didn't know what to say. Her mind was in a mess, and she could only tell him to hold on. She was telling him, and also telling herself. Su Shi, where's ye, Feng Sanyuan spat out a mouthful of blood, his voice weak as he asked. If it wasn't for Su Shi supporting him, he probably wouldn't be able to walk anymore. "He's fine, he's safe," Su Shi said in a low voice. She struggled to support him as they walked. Even though she knew they couldn't escape, she wasn't willing to give up and wait for death. She saw that the palace was right in front of her, but she saw flames rising from the surroundings and enveloping the entire palace. There was no way to escape from the front, and no way to retreat from the back. She stood there in a daze, and her entire being sank into despair. "There's no way out. Sanyuan, I don't think we can escape," she muttered to herself. This place was surrounded by flames on three sides, and she was being chased by a fairy realm expert. How could she possibly escape? Where could he escape to? Su Shi, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to protect you, but I had to make you come with me. Bang! Bang! Chapter 1656. I really don't know why such ants would waste so much of our manpower. If we want to destroy this place, just the two of us are enough. Two fairy realm cultivators stood where Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi had been standing just now. They looked at the two people who had been sent flying into the flames and were now lying motionless on the ground. "After taking one of our palms, they will definitely die," the other fairy realm cultivator said. He glanced at the two people whose auras were extremely weak and said, "It's really a waste of talent to deal with such people." They were very angry that they had been called here to silence these people. However, since the others had come, they had no choice but to come. Therefore, they vented their anger and dissatisfaction on these people who were very weak in their eyes. Who asked them to offend these people? They had sent fairy realm cultivators to take their lives. Did they want to live? It was simply impossible. About 100 meters away, Old Man Gung, Ren Xiang, and the others, who had just come out of the secret passage, happened to see this scene. When they saw Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi being sent flying by the two fairy realm cultivators and thrown into the burning palace, their hearts sank. They wanted to rush out, but they were stopped by Old Man Gung. "Do you want to die?" Old Man Gung shouted at them in a low voice. He pulled them back to hide and let them restrain their auras. Those are fairy realm cultivators. Their strength is far above the nascent soul realm. Even if you go out, you will die under their pressure before you can even get close. Ren Xiang and the others clenched their fists tightly. Blue veins appeared on the back of their hands. They were trying their best to suppress the monstrous killing intent in their hearts. Because they were worried that they would be discovered, they asked the other Phoenix guards to stay in the secret passage. Only the 8 of them followed Old Man Gung out. However, they did not expect that, after walking for a short while, they would see the retired emperor and his wife being sent flying by the two fairy realm experts. They were on the verge of death as they fell into the flames. When they saw this scene, they were powerless to save them. Anger and murderous intent filled their hearts. Are we just going to watch them die in the sea of fire? One of them asked. His voice paused between each word, filled with unwillingness. That's a fairy realm expert. The two of them were injured to such an extent, and they were struck by a palm strike from the back. That palm strike must have shattered their heart meridians. They won't be able to survive. Old Master Gung said sadly, so what if you go out? Even if you go out, you will only be making unnecessary sacrifices. Don't tell me you want to sacrifice your lives to bring back their corpses. Or do you think you've lived enough and want to walk out and let them kill you? Hearing his words, the 8 people gradually calmed down, forcefully suppressing the unwillingness, anger, and killing intent in their hearts. Search. Little Feng Yi must still be alive. He must still be somewhere in the palace. Ren Xiang loosened his clenched fists as he spoke. He looked at them and said, let's split up and search. We must find little Feng Yi as soon as possible. Okay. The others replied. They then added, be careful. Don't let those people find you. The 8 people split into 4 groups and quickly dispersed. Old Man Gung also went in another direction to search. No matter what, they had to find the child. Otherwise, how could they face the Phoenix couple? You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.